Thank you very much. Thank you for a wonderful, wonderful introduction, more than I could have ever imagined about myself. So I think you framed the debate just right, and that's what we are going to talk about. I'm going to try to put a little meat on this idea of what the internet has meant to free expression, to communications, and then to open it up, hopefully, to a real debate, because how much free expression should we allow in this world where communications are instant? Where is the line drawn between privacy and free expression? How much speech is too much speech? And these are the issues that I'm dealing with every day, and we're having court cases or front page articles written about, because the internet fundamentally has changed how we communicate. So now, I think, we put this slide together almost 10 months ago. It's 2 billion, we said at that time. I think within a couple of years, we expect it to be up to 4 billion of the 5 billion people will be on the internet. And I traveled to Africa, and we see already people communicating on the internet with their mobile phones. And what does this mean? I, as you heard, started my career as a journalist in Paris as a correspondent for the Christian Science Monitor, and that's 20 years ago. And then I would type my article out on a typewriter. I would take the pieces of paper and go to the subway and take it 7 metro stops, climb up the stairs at Reuters, and have someone else type in the teletext. And I had to finish by 4 in the afternoon to get it out for the next morning. And today, coming to Salzburg, I had blogs to write, and I did it right on the train that I was traveling to get here. And I think that really says the most important thing is that every one of those billion people can communicate with the entire world. So it's a fundamental revolution where each of us can reach a global audience. Each of us can say what we want and have others hear. Whereas before it was top down, now it's really bottoms up. And that changes, I think, everything. So let me just give you an idea of when everyone can express themselves, people are expressing themselves. A year ago, 325 million websites online. 325 million. Remember when there was only 5 newspapers or 10 newspapers? It's a fundamental difference. So the other thing was, you look at the amount of material that people are producing, data. And I know my friend Ken, who was a journalist with me and is here, is working on this issue, but there's 5 exabytes of data that were created each day in 2011. And I think the figure, I'm looking, the figure was something like 5 exabytes of data or gigabytes of data were created a decade ago. So it is exponential, just like you were talking about YouTube. And in, let's see, 250,000 words per minute, I believe that's already doubled. 64 hours, and I updated this because it was, a year ago it was 48 hours of video that were uploaded to YouTube per minute, and now it's 64 hours. So it's because storage doesn't cost anything, or practically doesn't, and the cost is lying, that the cost of giving this video or storing it and having it visible to anyone in the world has changed dramatically. I mean, we can go on and on, 70,000 photos updated to Facebook per minute, 100,000 tweets. I think you get the idea. And it is this, I think that's really the starting point for the weekend's conversation, which is that all of a sudden, each of us has a voice. And what I'm going to talk about now is the way the government and society has reacted, because that sort of power, which scares a lot of governments, and makes what we're seeing now is really, I think, a backlash against the liberating freedom that the internet has given. It has, what we say is that, a decade ago, 4 countries censored the net, censored, filtered, blocked. Last year, it was up to 42. And this is not us saying it, but the Open Network Initiative. Google, we operate in, you said, actually it's 150 countries. And we estimate that in 25 of them, at any point in time, one of our services is blocked or goes offline. It can be YouTube in Iran. It can be maps in Uzbekistan because the government doesn't like what we call or what the map is listed at, or it can be constant like in China. And the other thing that we'll get to is that it isn't just those usual suspects. What we're seeing also is a crackdown from democracies and Western countries that express a belief in free expression. Now, we recognize that technology, all this free expression leads to a lot of messiness. It leads to people saying things that a lot of people don't want to hear, or things that are unpleasant, and it does raise concerns for privacy, for copyright, and other issues which we can discuss. A good example of that is Iran, where obviously the revolution there allowed people to get their pictures out in 2009. Now in Syria, the difference between Syria today and Syria 15 years ago is people actually can get videos out on YouTube or other ways of showing what is happening, so they can't die in silence or protest just because journalists cannot get access to the country. But in this case, there was a young woman who was Nida Sultan, who was filmed being shot, and the video came out. And afterwards, we found out that the Iranian government had used technology at the same time to block and filter that content, but also to track down the people that were uploading it and to make sure that they couldn't continue to do that. So, as we see that there is a growing threat, in our view, of internet censorship. The story of what happened to us in China is well known. There's Iran and North Korea, which don't let any of the products be used. But this is also, as I was suggesting, in countries that you wouldn't expect. And I'd like to explain an example in Italy. We had 3 of our employees, top employees, that were convicted there of invasion in a criminal case, officially for invading privacy. The case was, there was a video of a young boy, a handicapped boy, who was being bullied. The bullies put the video up on to the predecessor for YouTube, and when it was there for a little while, and as soon as the police told us, we took the video down, and nonetheless, 3 of the employees who had nothing to do with the video were convicted and sentenced to a jail term. We're appealing this, but the whole point of the responsibility of a platform and what the internet, what we run internet platforms, and we believe that we have certain responsibilities, but the responsibility isn't to prevent all videos from going up. It's to bring the video down when it's shown to be against the law afterwards. And that you have to do that expeditiously. That's what European and American law shows. But there are many countries, Italy among them, where courts are now threatening to overturn that and increase the liability on platforms to such an extent that we would be prevented from or obliged to filter or to preview everything before it goes up. And that would sort of undermine the entire, I think, point or freedom that the internet has given us. Now, we do recognize, again, that we have responsibilities, that there are limits on free speech. In Germany, if a court comes to us and says that the content that has gone up is against the law because it's Nazi content, with a court order, we will take it down. We ban child pornography. But again, the approach is to respect local law, but to try to push back whenever possible and let information flow. And how do we do that? And I think the first thing is we believe in transparency. And I've spent the last 8 months trying to convince European governments also to publish, to be transparent about the requests they make to internet companies or telephone companies about the content they want down or the users, information on users that they want to gather. Now, we published something called a transparency report. It lists exactly the requests we get from countries around the world, and we update it every 6 months. We updated it. One of the things I was doing this week was we released the update on Monday. And what it showed was data that we were getting more requests from democratic countries than from non-democratic countries to take content down. Now, I mean, that's not, let's be clear. In China, they don't even ask us, they just block us, okay? So it's not the same scale, even though, but the problem is growing, and it's very real and persistent that many democratic governments are uncomfortable with the material going up on the internet and want to find ways of getting it down. Often without court orders, they're just police calls attempting to do this without a judicial request. In the cases, for example, to give you some examples, was Spain. We received several hundred requests from the Data Protection Authority and the government there to take down links with newspapers. So in one case, there was a plastic surgeon who apparently had botched some operations and had, there'd been an article about him in El País, and we're being sued to take down the link from his name when you type his name into Google with the result in El País. El País isn't being sued, but we are. And that's, I mean, the point that we would like to make is that, what we believe is that if you have a problem with content that goes up on the internet, instead of having us bring it down, we think that you should go after or have the person who wrote it bring it down and published it. And that the rules that we have for offline, before internet, are viable online, the same sort of defamation laws, et cetera. What we also do is, in this transparency report, is show where our traffic is cut. And that line you see there, where it goes jiggity, jiggity, jag, and then all at the bottom is Egypt, I believe, and Pakistan. So in Egypt, it was when the government during the revolution shut down the internet. And in Pakistan, I forget what the annotation says, but they cut down some of our services at one point. And therefore, we think that also showing that will help, will put pressure on governments to think twice before asking for something to come down or breaking the service. It was YouTube in Pakistan. I mean, technology can help overcome these sort of attempts that the governments do to bring down information or to limit access to information. In Egypt, we had some engineers who developed a product over the weekend after the internet was down where you could send an SMS and it would come out as a tweet on the internet. So there are ways I mean, it's going to be hard for governments, I believe, in the end to continue or to really succeed entirely in cutting down the internet. There are other issues involved in this. One, just to think, is economic. We believe that if you block the free flow of information, many countries do, that it's the same as a trade barrier if you block the physical entry of, let's say, video recorders. That one of what we'd like to see is in a lot of free trade agreements that digital free trade be put on the same standard as regular manufacturing free trade. And everyone can see for example, in China, where we can't operate normally, that you do have other local companies who then are able to prosper in our place. So it's another side of this is what is the corporate social responsibility? What is our responsibility? I've talked about it legally, but we all face pressure to appease governments, I think. As they crack down, many companies will want to say, well, we'll have a race to the bottom. And I think after our China experience and Yahoo's China experience, the three of us, Google, Yahoo, and Microsoft, came together and created something called the Global Network Initiative. It includes NGOs like Index on Censorship, academics like the Berkman Society, and what it does is hold independent audits of the companies that are, and their attitude towards human rights and government requests to either hand over information or user requests. What we found, unfortunately, in this, one of the reasons I was delighted to come, is that no European companies have joined us. We've tried very, very hard to recruit them. I can understand some of the reasons, but until we really make it the global network initiative and not the American network initiative, I think this issue will founder. And we do need some sort of corporate self-regulation that would be credible to make it flourish. I've been working on this issue for about a year now for Google, and I have found that in the northern fringe of Europe there is great support. The Swedes, the Estonians, we hosted the Estonian president in Ireland, the Dutch, some at the European Commission, but in Southern Europe and elsewhere, we're finding very little traction in this argument and for the future of the web. So these were just a couple of quotes. Just to conclude, and then we can open it up to a conversation, I hope. We do see this as a battle that is going to go on for years to come. It will be between the companies and governments, between companies themselves, but it will also be, we think, taken to international institutions. The internet was created, the reason 2 billion people could get online was it was from the bottom up. It was a group of corporations, academics, and who govern this without government control. And we do see the danger that governments around the world will want to install some sort of sustained government control over the internet, maybe take the UN and put the UN in control of the internet. And going forward in the year to come, I think that will be a battle, whether it's fought at the ITU in Geneva, International Telecommunications Union, or elsewhere, that will make headlines and will determine whether the internet can continue to show its reach its potential to allow all of us to express ourselves and to do the things that we saw in Egypt with Facebook or in Tunisia with blogs, or whether governments will succeed in throttling it. So I'd like to leave you with that, and hopefully we can now just have a good conversation. Thank you very much.